Hi everyone, welcome to the week 3 overview video for EDSS 379. So this week we will be focusing on historical content, skills, and resources. We will be spending quite a bit of time looking at the history syllabus document, and we will continue to be looking at this document next week as well. So as we look at the curriculum document, we will be thinking about the content that you need to teach students in a unit of work, the concepts that you also need to be teaching in a unit of work, and how those concepts are integrated into different topics. You will also be thinking about the skills that you need to teach and how you can teach these skills to students in different units of work and across different topics. In addition to that, we'll be thinking about the types of resources that you will use in your teaching. We'll need to be thinking about how resources need to be age appropriate and also relevant to what you are trying to teach. And they also need to be accessible as well. We need to make sure that resources are available when we go to teach. So that's a lot to get through this week. As I said previously, we will be continuing to look at the syllabus next week as well. And I do realize that we have a compact 8 weeks in this unit, and we also need to be looking at 2 different subjects. We need to be looking at history and geography. And there is a lot to know and learn across these 2 subject areas. And it's hard to look at everything in these 8 weeks. So I do focus on the most important parts of what you need to learn when you become a teacher in history and geography. Obviously, the knowledge and understanding that you will need to impart to your students is very important. Looking at the different units of work and the type of content you will need to teach to your students. But I think the most important part of teaching history and geography is thinking about the types of skills you will need to teach students. And the reason why I say this, and I have said this before, is that you could have a really great lesson. You could have a unit of work in front of you and think, I need to teach this dot point or these dot points here, this topic, and I have a really great idea. But while doing that, you will also need to be thinking of the types of skills your students will need to have in order to be able to complete that learning activity. It may be a skill or different skills that students have learned previously, but more than likely, these skills have been ones that students have learned in an earlier year of school, which means that they will continue to learn these skills as they go through, history and geography, but they will need to be learning a lot more about how to use that skill because it needs to be age appropriate as well. So we need to be thinking about the types of skills that you need to teach your students and as they proceed through early stage 1 in up to stage 3. And we will probably have a look at what happens beyond primary school so that you can see how you are really providing that foundation for your students as they move forward into high school. But what I was originally going to say is that you could have a really great learning activity that addresses the knowledge and understanding, the learning of the concepts. But if the students don't have those skills in order to be able to be successful in that learning activity, you're going to run into trouble. In order to complete that learning activity. The knowledge and understanding won't be gained by the students if they don't have the skills. That's why I think out of everything that we do in this unit, a focus on skills is a really great idea. You can, if you don't know anything about the First Fleet, for example, it's not hard to look that up and learn that. It may not be something that you have really looked at since you were in school potentially, or any different topic that you look at in the history syllabus. You may think, I don't know anything about that, and I'm not really too sure about that. But you could easily learn. But the skills that you have to teach to your students, this is where the difficulty can come through. So if we think about the history syllabus, and if you watch the dissection video, which is located in week 3, I'll show you that in a moment, where you can find that. If you ever look at those skills, for example, analysis and use of sources or research, these are history-specific skills that students need to learn. And if you don't know how to teach those, then that can make your learning activities more difficult. So that's why we're going to be thinking a lot this week about how do you teach research skills to stage 2 students? What does that look like in the classroom? How do you teach analysis and use of sources to a student in year 5? What does that look like? What are the expectations? How do you teach it? So these are all things that we're going to be looking at. So again, the skills is where we need to have our focus for this week, and a lot of different weeks in this unit. And again, looking at different types of resources. Often when you go into schools, there'll be a lot of resources provided to you by other teachers. Great schools do this. I've been at schools where they're not so great at doing this, but more oftentimes than not, schools are pretty good about providing resources for teachers, especially in primary school, from what I've seen. Sometimes in high school, you can be kind of left off and on your own to sort of figure it out. But again, that's not a lot. It's just sometimes. So last week we looked at inquiry learning. I mentioned in the week 2 overview video that last week, week 2 is probably the most important week for this unit, because you will be thinking a little bit about it in the first assignment, and you will be thinking a lot about it in the second assignment. So we have time to really be thinking about what inquiry learning is, what's great about it, what's not so great about it. It does come with its challenges, but it is informed by the idea that we are not really doing the rote learning with our students. Sometimes we do need to do that, but more oftentimes than not, we need to be involving our students in that guided discovery. And there are many reasons for that, and I go through that in a lecture. So I'm hoping that you've had a chance to watch that lecture and had a real think about what that can look like in the classroom. So in the lecture, I actually go through an example from stage 1, from year 1, and give you an example of what types of activities you would do across the different stages. So we know that there are 6 different stages in the inquiry active learning sequence model, and those 6 different stages have 6 different learning activities. So they all look different. They all take different amounts of time, irrespective of thinking about differentiation. They're all different learning activities. The way that you teach students to gather data from some sort of source is different from the type of learning activity that you do, getting them to look at that data and analyze it. So that's the analysis and use of sources. So again, 6 different learning activities. There's a lot to learn there. Make sure you go through that material as much as possible, getting through that lecture especially. So last week as well, on the week 2 discussion questions and activity, I had some questions there for you to thinking about in terms of your own experiences with inquiry learning, and sort of maybe thinking about why your role as the teacher is really still quite important in inquiry learning. It's not just sitting back, putting our feet up and having a coffee. We really are quite active in the role. So thinking about that, and also your first impressions of inquiry learning. Admittedly, my first impressions of inquiry learning were that students are just sent off to the computers, they do research, you just walk around and let them figure it out. Yes, that was my initial thought of inquiry learning, I'm being honest. That's definitely not what it is. The activity here is an interesting one. Have a view of this video here. I'm not sure exactly how long it is, but the authors of the one of the readings for this week, Porter and Fussell, they actually do sort of an example learning inquiry sequence with some students on campus. Now, it was from quite a while ago, but it's an interesting way to see how it's enacted out. Now, again, if you watch the lecture, I use a different example, which is focused on stage 1. So you can have those 2 examples there. If you're really keen to think about what does this actually look like? This is a great theory and it all sounds really, great. What does it actually look like? Then those are your 2 examples there. Okay, so contribute to that if you can, but at the very least, try to watch that video and the lecture for sure. Now, in the lecture, if you've watched it, this was one of the questions that I had, and if you contributed to the poll questions, then you would have had to select one of these, and if you didn't, you still probably had to think about it. And the question that I posed was, what does inquiry learning look like in the classroom? Is it A, teachers task students to find and research information? B, students work independently of the teacher after the question is established? C, students select own topic and compose questions? Or is it all of the above or none of the above? So not knowing what inquiry learning is all about, you may have had a difficult time answering this, but I also ask it again at the end of the lecture to see if your opinion changed. So the answer to this question is that we aren't sending students to find and research information necessarily. They do research and they do collect data, but they are not being sent off to do research. They are given specific tasks. They don't work independently of the teacher. They work together. It's a guided discovery. It's very much a mutual opportunity for both teacher and student to work together. Students selecting their own topic. Nope, the teacher is responsible for selecting the topic based on the unit and the curriculum. And composing questions. No, they don't compose their own questions, although composing questions is a part of the research process too, but that is not the correct answer. C. So it's actually, the answer is actually E, none of the above. All right, so thinking about the readings for this week, you will have downloaded this unit schedule, probably looked at this quite a bit. So that's Porter and Fussell, that's from last week. Now, week 3, we're looking at history and historical inquiry, and also conceptual thinking in HASS. Now, you'll notice that I believe the lecture slides, no, that's for last week. If the lecture slides have different readings than what is in the unit schedule, which I think does happen 1 or 2 weeks, please just follow this unit schedule. This is the Bible of readings, okay? So going into our unit for this week. All right, so we've got 3 different lectures. I do realize that's quite a bit, but this will be the only week where there's a lot of information and a lot of material to get through, and that's simply because this is the history syllabus week. And again, it's not ideal. We really need probably 8 weeks to focus on the syllabus, but this is the time that we're given, so this is what we have to work with. So this lecture is actually given by Kim Porter, who is one of the authors of the readings that you do in this unit. So that was actually last week's reading, Porter and Fussell. So she delivers this lecture about historical knowledge and understanding. This lecture here on historical content, skills, and resources, this is delivered. I deliver this lecture here. There's a little bit of overlap between the two, but that's there for you to have a look at. And also, Kim Porter does a great video on looking at skills, so, and resources, I believe, as well. So making sure you get through those. I'm not sure exactly how long they are, but I feel like they're probably around the 30-minute mark. So give yourself the time to go through that. You also have the quiz. And remembering that these quizzes are not assessed, but they actually open up the topic notes, okay? So I can see that many of you have been able to get into the quizzes, but there's also a lot of students who haven't been able to get in there and start these quizzes, probably because you maybe haven't gotten to that point in the unit yet, and that's fine, but don't miss out on the topic notes, because often they're really important for your assessment. So this is the dissection video I was talking about. So this is in this week's section, about 30 minutes long, and I go through all the different parts of the syllabus. So these are the lecture notes here, and you'll notice that I usually put these in Adobe PDF format and also PowerPoint. So it's the same document, it's just whatever you prefer. So this is an article on mode, which is discussed in one of the readings. So I've just put that there for you to have a look at. It is relevant to geography, but we will come back to this again. So be sure to have a look at that as well. Just a couple of videos here. So this one, what are the history skills that we need to teach? This is where we're starting to think about what are those skills. And if you watch the dissection video, you'll probably be thinking, oh, I think it's this, this, this from that table. But this just gives you an overview. It's only about 40 seconds long. And this is just an example of how we can analyze and use sources. It is for year sevens, but it will give you a foundation for thinking about this types of scaffolding that we need to do, and graphic organizers can be really great in order to really tap into the analysis of sources. So that's just an exemplar there. So we'll have some discussion questions and activities for this week. Again, a lot of it's going to be, let's look at the syllabus, let's really get into it, thinking about the topics and the skills that we need to teach our students. Now, a couple of other things. The first assessment is focused on content and skill development. So as much as you can, engage with this material. Really important to do that. I want to come back to just looking at this for a moment. You'll notice in the lecture last week that I went through this model for teaching the skill, which is actually in that Porter and Fussell chapter. And you will see me come back to this. You will see it come up in the notes for the first assignment. I will come back to it again in the second assignment, and you will see it threaded throughout this unit because it is a great model for us to remind ourselves on the different things that we need to be thinking about when we are teaching our students skills. So we can walk through this model this week in the tutorials as well. First thing to remember is never assume the competence of your students. Again, something that I did. And if you want me to share the what happened in the lesson, I certainly can, but it involved me assuming students knew how to use certain types of technology. And that was not necessarily the case for all students. And also my assumption that students knew how to do research. And I had to take a complete step back away from the assessment because I realized that skill development was not up to par. So again, keep your eye out for this model. We'll be coming back to it time and time again. Okay, so now this week you'll notice in this section there is one document here, the changing curriculum. Now it's history and geography because it's actually together. So we will be coming back to this again when we look at geography as well. But this week and next week, depending on how much time we have, we're going to have a little bit of a quick look at the history curriculum and how it's changing. Now, as you know, we don't have the new syllabus just yet, but this document gives us sort of a little bit of an idea of the types of things that are changing in the new curriculum. Those of you who are in other states will be I think in Queensland, you'll be working with ACARA, and I think schools are already implementing that. So it depends on what state you're in. But for the purposes of this unit, let's just, it's really important that we look at the changes that have been happening in history and geography, whether they're implemented now or in a year's time. We need to be thinking about these changes. So if we have a look at, for example, let's see, we'll go to year 3. So we can have a look at the changes here, the achievement standard. We can look here at things that have changed, for example, whether content areas have been refined, combined, split, removed, what the implications are of these points that have been removed from the curriculum, or whether they've been refined and in what ways and how that makes a difference. So we will be looking at that as well this week for sure. So that's your material for this week to get through. There's quite a bit there, so take the time that you need to do that. Now, next week, we will be looking at perspectives when we're teaching history. And again, as you watch the dissection video, or if you have already, you'll know this, perspectives is both a skill and also a concept. So It is something that is really important and it'll inform part of your first assignment. So all that material for next week has been opened for you except for the week 4 overview video because I haven't filmed it yet. I'm filming the week 3 one at the moment. So that video will come, but everything else is open and ready to go for you so that you can get started on that first assignment. And the first assignment details have been opened along with the video. So if you go into the assessment section, you can see that we have the instructions there, some extra information, the overview video, an extra video, which is not the assignment 1 overview video, but it supplements, especially for that last section. And you will come back to this video again in the second assignment because you will be doing similar things, similar tasks across the 2 assignments. So if you don't do so well in the first assignment in certain parts, you have a chance to take on that feedback and do a lot better, okay? But remembering that I do talk about this video when I film this video, so this is where it is here. Also, please take note that all videos are located in the recording section, which you can find here. This is in the Unit Information and Resources block. And a couple of extra little bits that I go through in the video to help you complete the assignment. So as we know, this is due on July the 22nd, but you have the option of using that flexible portal. Apologies again for not being able to run the tutorial last week, but we will make up that time in the tutorial and focus on the important parts of the inquiry learning process. Some of you may have been able to attend the 4 to 5 p.m. But again, we will be back on campus running those tutorials and I will record those as well. This is for weeks 1 to 4, and then we're going to sort of be changing the times a little bit, but we'll talk more about that later. That's just all the information that you need is right here on the tutorials. I'm going to finish off with a cute little video that I always think about and I love when I think about history and how we can teach history to our students and make them love it. And the reason why I always think of this video is because when we are asked in tutorials or asked by our students in the classroom, why do I need to know this? History is often one of those subjects where it is sometimes difficult to explain, especially to the younger years, that it's important to know about the past so that we can change the future and so forth. But there are other answers. There are other answers. It's not just about changing the future. I mean, we have learned a lot from the past, but sometimes we look at the present and think, have we really made a lot of changes or are we repeating stuff? So there are other things to be thinking about, especially down to the personal level and in our local communities and so forth, and something that's more relatable to students. So I often think of this video that I'm going to share with you in a second. But again, that's something that we need to really be thinking about as we dive into the history syllabus. We really need to be thinking about how we can relay the importance of history to our students, not just a boring subject that's not relevant to them because it happened so many years ago, that it's important because of this. It impacts us today. The past is relevant because, we need to be critical, both of the past, but also the present as well. And it allows us to do that by providing that inspection and critical analysis of past decisions that have been made. So I'll just show you this quick video before I finish up, and I wish you all a really good week. And if you have any questions, you know how to contact me. And really looking forward to getting into the history syllabus. All right, so I'll just share this video and then I'll end. Bye, everyone.
What was that? The weather. Very peculiar, don't you think?
Yeah. Looks like the winds are changing.
Change is good.
Yeah, but it's not easy. I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past. I've been running from it for so long. Ow! Jeez, what was that for?
It doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Yeah, but it still hurts.
Oh, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. Ah, you see? So what are you going to do?
First, I'm gonna take your stick.
No, 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 not a stick. Hey, where are you going?
I'm going back!
Good! Go on! Get out of here!